How's it going, everybody? Showing my Super Nintendo SNES collection here today. I have 13 games, I believe it is. I think it's the same amount as the games I have for the Super Famicom. Let me see. Yes, I'm looking at them because I had to move them out of the way on my shelf to get these ones out. Obviously, I get the SNES games because I don't go nuts with them. I did when I was up back on Long Island, and there's a book off opened up in Massapequa. So I went there like 3 times when I was up there. We were up there briefly in January and picked up 5 games. So I don't go nuts picking them up, but I pick up the ones I want, like Area 88, UN Squadron, ActRaiser, Super Mario World. I got that was a book off for I think $8-9. I think it sells for like 15-16. It's not an expensive game either way for the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom, but some are just cheaper. Like, unfortunately, I'd love to get, I still would if I could just learn to read the language, get like the Final Fantasies and stuff, because they're super cheap and they're super expensive to get for the Super Nintendo, at least here in the US. Not super expensive, but you're spending like card only, we'll just say for like a Final Fantasy 2 or 3, it's like 50, 60, $70. And I don't feel like spending that. Especially when I used to have it back in the day. Real quickly, I traded, this would have been, I think, '02. GameStop was still taking, well, it was Funko Land, GameStop, eBay, Funko Land was GameStop, right? Before GameStop, I forget. But they were still taking older games, and I took Link to the Past and Final Fantasy 3 to GameStop, and I think I got like $21 for them both. One was $8, I think Link to the Past was $8 in credit and $13 for Final Fantasy 3. This is back in '02 when it didn't. These games had a little bit of value, but they were not what they became. Actually, later on, I still had for both of them, I had the manuals and the maps still. I ended up selling them later on eBay, but I was like, I mean, this was 4 or 5 years, 4 years before I started, 4 or 5 years, 4. I'm sorry, before I started on selling on eBay. Sorry, I don't know why I'm going on about this, but let's get into the games. First one here I got is Super WrestleMania. It's one of the wrestling games on the Super Nintendo. It's decent. I like Royal Rumble better. It's probably my favorite. There's this one, Royal Rumble. It's WrestleMania arcade game, I believe, and there might be there's I think one other one. Unless is there WWE, WWF at the time, Raw, or is that just on the Genesis? I don't know if it's on both. But you got Hogan here, Macho Man, Jake the Snake. Oh, that's Demolition, right? He's got Sid Vicious. Is that what he was called in WWF? I want to say Shawn Michaels is in here, Bret Hart. Probably Razor Ramon, I don't know. So, and the rest of the games back then were solid. Here's a classic, for me at least. Super Baseball Simulator 1000. The first one was on the NES. This one's awesome. Like, this one you give super pitches and super swings. So like a pitcher will throw a pitch and it will go, or it will be a super missile fastball and bat. When you're at the bat, some guys have the ability to get they're able to like just crush a home run immediately. They have like different weird abilities and stuff. It's really cool. I don't know if there's a straight up I can't remember if there's like a robot team in here too, but I don't think there is. But the guys get abilities and stuff. It's actually a legitimately good sport game though, with that kind of like over the top stuff thrown in. It's a sick game. It really is. I think I got this at the Video Game Trading Post in the Bayshore Mall. But it is classic. I want to say I still have the manual, my original manual from back in the day lying around. For some reason, I must have sold the games when I was like in the 90s at some point. And I still have like F-Zero manual, a couple other sport game manuals lying around. Like I said, I still had Link to the Past and Final Fantasy 3 and 2. I don't know what happened to 2 manual, but anyway. Awesome. Pick this one up. It's not that expensive. If you're into like sport games and that have a little bit of that arcadey weird edge, super abilities edge to them. Might as well get through the sport games now. Super Tennis is a classic. I love the original tennis on the NES. This one's great too. It doesn't hold up as well as I thought it would, but it's still super fun, and it's still my second favorite tennis game behind Virtua Tennis on the Dreamcast. It looks good. It does the kind of mode set when you go around you change sides. It spins the camera and stuff. It looks nice too. It like graphically looks nice. It still plays well, but I just feel like it doesn't hold up as well. Maybe it's because you play future tennis games and some of them, the older ones, don't hold up as well. But it's still something classic. Like this is one of like if I was picking like 10 games to even 5 games to like associate with the system, this would be one of them. It just would be like Virtua Tennis is still my favorite though. My friend, he would have like parties at his house, and this would be like the early 2000s, and like he still, his brother I think had a Dreamcast, and it was upstairs, and he had a couple games, and everybody, like random people, me being one of them, like, let's go upstairs and play some Virtua Tennis. Everybody be downstairs drinking and stuff. People are upstairs playing one-on-one Virtua Tennis. But yeah, it's still a great tennis game. It just, and you can't expect some games to hold up over, what is it now? 35 years, whatever that may be. A little less than that. NBA Live 95. I put a lot of time into this when I was a kid on the Super Nintendo. I think I might still have the manual for this too. We've got the Knicks and the Knicks and the Rockets. I was going to say the Knicks and the Bulls. Knicks and the Rockets on here. They would have played in the finals before, because this would have come out in 94, but the new season would have already been started. You got John Starks, it looks like Charles Smith, Olajuwon, Robert Horry. I don't know who's behind. I used to play this is when they changed. This was the first one after the Lakers versus Celtics games, and NBA Showdown was the last one to have the side-to-side view. I still love those games. This one gave the kind of, I guess, the angled view. It's not really isometric, but I think that's on an angle, which they went for a long time. I played a ton of this. Funny story with this. I don't know if it's really funny, but I was tripping out once in high school, and I threw this game in, and I forget who I was using, but I was chucking up threes from half court. And half of them were going in, and I could swear I saw the rotation in his wrist when he was shooting. I was like, this is insane. I was, of course, out of my mind, but I thought that was funny. But I had a lot of fun with this game. These still hold up, too. I don't know if they hold up as well to me personally as the Lakers versus Celtics, Bulls versus Blazers, Bulls versus Lakers and stuff. But they still do hold up pretty well. Here's another one. Let me see if I have. I do not. Another basketball game I had back in the day. This I know I still have the manual for. I've always liked the sport. Like the sport games back in the 16-bit era, I loved. And NES as well, the 8-bit stuff too. Up until like Nintendo 64. And then I played a ton. The last sport game, well, not counting the NBA 2K3 Errors mode, that I've been playing like crazy on the PS5, which I'm not actually playing the actual game. I'm just doing the general manager type stuff, and it's awesome. As ESPN NFL 2K5 is like the last sport game I put a ton of. That's probably my favorite football game ever. But this was my era for sport games. But this is NCAA basketball. It's just $3 I got again at a video game trading post. This is Nintendo's NCAA game. They also did Stanley Cup Hockey, which also was in the same kind of like 3D kind of look. The way the court looked, like there was like no fans. It was all like blue around, and it was like the court like rotated and stuff. And it's actually a cool game. I used to play a decent amount of it. It plays fairly well, and it still does. It's got an interesting look. Stanley Cup Hockey did the same thing as this one, kind of the same kind of graphical look. And that's a decent game too. I should have picked that one up when I was up there. Well, when I was still living up there, because that's a $3 game too. But NCAA basketball is cool. You could use a lot of the known teams, but they don't have the actual players. But in your mind, you're like, oh, this is Jamal Mashburn. This is Christian Laettner or whatever. Because this would have probably come out in 91, maybe 92. So maybe he wasn't in it. I don't know. Laettner was drafted with Shaq and Alonzo Mourning, those big three, and that was the 92 draft, I believe, right? It could have come out in 91. I don't know. All right, that's it for the sport-related titles. I like my sport games from that era. I should show my Genesis sports games because I have like 50 of them. No, not 50, like 20 something. All right, we got a Pit Fighter here. Another cheap game you can get. Pit Fighter's a classic. It's like not even necessarily a great game. It's just a fighting game, but it has the digitized graphics like Mortal Kombat and stuff. This might have been is this pre-Mortal Kombat? But you're fighting in like a bar or whatever, and you're fighting in like areas you can get weapons and stuff, and you're just wailing on each other. It's an alright game actually, but it's cheap. THQ, the toy headquarters. I love how it still has the toy headquarters on there. THQ. Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster Bust Loose. I got this for my fiance because she has, they're hers actually, the two on the NES that were out, and we have the one, I got the one on the Genesis as well. I think that's Buster's Hidden Treasure, but they're pretty cool platformer games. This one, I like the one on the Genesis a little more than this one. But they have nice, colorful graphics and stuff, and they're just kind of fun to play. Like I said, this one's a little tougher to play because like you're using Buster and you got to like do a certain thing to speed up. It could be a little annoying, but it's still pretty fun. Konami. Konami's making a comeback. Good for them. People rag on Konami, and they've made some bad decisions, and they've whatever over the years. But Konami's like if you look up their run up until like the PS2 era and stuff, like they were doing. You look at the NES and you call Konami and Ultra their dummy company to get more games out. I mean, they had hit after hit on the NES. Super Nintendo, they had great stuff. And 64 did decent stuff. PlayStation 2 as well, I would think. I don't know all the games, though, outside of, like, Symphony of the Night. Because I just didn't have a PlayStation back then. And the PS2 era, too, and the Xbox Cube era, they were still pumping out stuff, and then they kind of faded a bit. But now they're making a comeback. Wario's Woods, this is another one I got for her. She loves this one, and she loves the one on the NES. This one is kind of much of the same, just better graphics. It's a puzzle game. It's kind of cool. I kind of suck at these games. She's, like, incredible at them. This, like, Dr. Mario and stuff. From what I played of it myself, it's decent. Is this Wizardry 4? No, it's Wizardry 5, sorry. I took the hilt to the sword as the eye, but it is not. It's just hilt, so it's Wizardry 5. This was cheap in one of the game stores on Long Island, and I grabbed it. It plays like, it has that view like Shining in the Darkness on the Genesis, but I didn't play much of it. It's a role-playing game, but it has that kind of first-person view where you're going through dungeons and stuff. Scooby-Doo Mystery. I like this game. The Genesis one is a lot better because the Genesis Scooby-Doo game is, I think they're actually both just called Scooby-Doo Mystery. I'm borrowing it from my friend when I was back in New York in January. I'm like, can I just borrow this? I'll bring it back because we're going back for a wedding in May. He's like, yeah, I'll bring it back then, but I think it is just called Scooby-Doo Mystery on there too. Is it like an actually like the way Scooby-Doo games should be, like the one on the Nintendo 64 as well. And I think there's some on the PC that play this way. It's like a point and click game, the one on the Genesis, straight point and click, like old school point and click. Like it's got all the words on the bottom, like hold, take, push, pull, whatever. That's the perfect way Scooby-Doo games should be, honestly. And it's a great game. It's short. It's only like 2 episodes or whatever you want to call them. This one is like a straight platformer, and it's not bad. Made by Acclaim, who's actually making a comeback with Jeff Jarrett. Leading the charge or part of the group. Acclaim used to be in their headquarters was in Glen Cove on Long Island, New York. But this is still a pretty fun game. You're using Shag and Scoob. I think I'm using both. I forget. And you run into the rest of them, Fred, Daphne, Velma throughout. You're going through different levels, finding things and stuff. And you have like a fear meter. They get scared when like the monsters come around and stuff. It's still pretty fun, but it's not nearly as good as the Genesis one. Final 3, Paperboy 2. This is another game I loved back in the day. I like the first Paperboy as well. I think there was one on Nintendo 64. I feel like I played one on Nintendo 64. It's Paperboy, much of the same. You're whipping things, you're getting chased by random objects, you gotta avoid stuff. Don't throw your papers through the window, you gotta get them in the mailbox. Then you have a little course at the end. Obstacle course type thing. This is another just game to me that, like, not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily say associate with the Super Nintendo, but of that time, it's just one of those games where I really remember because I had it back then and it was super fun. Super Return of the Jedi. I used to have the other two back. I never owned this one back in the day. I owned Super Star Wars and Super Empire Strikes Back. I had like the thick book. It was like the strategy book for Super Empire Strikes Back. I had it up until not that long ago. I think I sold it or I just lost it. These are cool games. They look incredible. Animations and stuff, graphics. It's got the music from Star Wars. This one you could use Han, Chewie. Is it Leia or Lando? Maybe both, and Luke. They're tough. Like all three of them are tough games. At this stage, though, you're just like, I'll play a little bit of it, get a little far, and then be like, oh, I'm not getting far. I'll just look up online, be like, what's the code, just to check out other levels and stuff. I think I beat the first one maybe back in the day. I do not remember beating the second one, and this one I have not beat. More THQ. It's either THQ or JVC on these cards. But it's still fun, and it looks great. Like it's like this is these three games on the system. It's almost like, yes, this is what I associate with the Star Wars games. These ones, because it's just, I don't know. It's just they have the look and stuff. They're still good platformers. They're tough. But yeah, Super Return of the Jedi. And the last one is another one. This has JVC on it, but it's Indiana Jones Greatest Adventures. This is cool. It's the same thing. LucasArts. You're playing through the first three indie movies at the time. They were the only ones. It has the same look as this. This one is easier to play. It still can be tough, but it's a little easier to play. It starts off, you're doing Raise the Lost Ark, you're getting chased by the boulder. You're doing the Last Crusade stuff when you're walking on the stones and you got to avoid things, the traps and stuff. It's a really cool game. You're doing you get the mode 7, but then you're on the raft. I think it's from Temple of Doom, right? When the guy jumps out of the plane, the pilot, and you're screwed. You got to hot launch out on the raft. You do that thing, and it's like the mode 7. This one also has that with like the land speeder stuff in the first one, and then other. I think you do X-wing action in this one. I can't remember, but I think you use the cloud car in Empire Strikes Back. But it has that in there as well. Once again, looks really good. Has that look, the music, the stuff like that. It's really cool. They were smart to just throw them in all three because this came out a little later. This might have been like a 93 or 94 game. Actually, I think it was 94. At this point, there would have probably been one or two of these out at that point. Because this one might have been 95, but also might have been 94. But this one is cool. I played a ton of this, and it's fun. And it plays well. I think it plays better than the Super Star Wars games. And it has that cool look. Like, it's just a cool look. I don't know what it is. Like, it's just that these games have really nice looks to them. But yeah, Indiana Jones Greatest Adventures. I'd like to maybe get some more Super Nintendo games. I'd never go nuts because they're just expensive. But, I'd love to have like Super Ghouls and Ghosts is not overly expensive. That's like the $25 range. Super Castlevania 4 is a bit more expensive, but not terrible. You can find some heavier hitters like Mario World, but I already have it for the Super Famicom. But that's one that's like $15 to $20. It's not overly pricey. But it's not that they're. Once you're passing like $40, $50, it's not necessarily expensive, but it's not what I'm willing to pay. I like to kind of keep it in the $25 and under range for certain systems. But maybe pick up like Link to the Past isn't overly expensive too, I don't think. I'm trying to think of like the games I had when I was a kid. I had Super Castlevania 4, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. The Final Fantasy Super Punch-Out I think is a little more pricey. I had Super Mario World, I had Super Mario Kart, but I have no real interest in having that again. I don't think that one's overly expensive either. Maybe $30. I'm trying to think if there's any other sport games I wouldn't have been having. Like the NCAA basketball and stuff, and it's surprising NBA Live, but the other sport games I prefer to play on the Genesis, like the NHLs and stuff like that, and the Lakers or Celtics games. I just think they are better on I think the Genesis was the better system for sports games. Well, the Super Nintendo did have good ones, but some of the ones that were on both consoles did not. They played better on the Genesis. What else did I have back then? Like MVP Baseball or MLB PA Baseball, I think it was. I still have a manual for that. I'll run a couple Maddens. I don't care about those. Yeah, I don't know. I try to think back of these games I had. I know I had more. I think I had more for the Genesis, but Star Fox is one I could possibly pick up. That's one I had back in the day. F-Zero is one I do want to get again. That one's not expensive on either version, Super Famicom or Super Nintendo, and I still do have the manual for that one. That was my first game, actually, for Super Nintendo. But anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on here. That's just my Super Nintendo collection, and thanks for checking this out, and have a good day.